The sun was low over the quiet valley when Ethan Ward saw a figure at his gate. He had just put away the hoe and was rubbing the dust from his hands when the woman stepped closer, slow and careful, as if she did not want to scare his horses. She looked tired from the road. Her dress was plain and worn at the edges. Her hair was braided back, with small bits of grass caught in it from the wind. Her eyes were steady. She stood straight even though he could tell she was hungry. Ethan felt the familiar tug of worry. He had enough to get through the week if the pump held and the beans did not fail. But he also knew the ache of a long road with no friend at the end of it. She spoke first in careful English. Her name was Nayeli. She said she had been looking for work and a safe place to sleep. She did not ask for more than a bit of food and a space in the hayloft until morning. She said she could leave at dawn if he wished. Her voice was soft but clear. Ethan did not answer right away. He studied her hands. The palms were strong and lined from field work. She carried a small pouch at her belt with dried herbs and twine. He knew a worker's kit when he saw one. "Come to the porch," he said at last. "There's stew on the stove." He brought a bowl and a clean cup of water and he set them down so she could choose how close to stand. She thanked him and ate in quiet, small bites that showed she had learned to make food last. While she ate, Ethan checked the corral gate and the water barrel, as if this was a usual evening with a usual guest. In truth, it was not usual for him at all. He lived alone. People in town said he kept to himself because of the old loss that followed him like a long shadow. He did not discuss the shadow. He tried to keep his farm above water and his heart steady. After supper, he carried a spare blanket to the barn and pointed to the loft ladder. "You can sleep there," he said. "Safe and dry." She gave a small nod and climbed the ladder with a slow grace as if she had done the same in many barns before. Ethan stayed on the porch a while and listened to the field settle for the night. The frogs were loud by the ditch, which was a good sign. It meant there was still water moving. He watched the last light run down behind the hills and finally went inside. The next morning, when Ethan stepped out at first light, he found the broken side gate fixed with a strong willow weave. The hinge had been loose for a week, but he had left it, thinking there were too many jobs and only 2 hands. Now it held straight and quiet. The horses had been watered, and the old mare with the touchy stomach stood calmer than usual. He noticed the faint smell of mint and another plant he could not name. He followed the scent to the barn and found Nayeli already awake, sitting on the step, rolling twine around a small bundle of herbs. She greeted him with a small smile. "The mare," she said, pointing gently. She worried. I gave her a little mint and rubbed her belly. "She is fine now." Ethan felt a warm lift inside his chest. He thanked her and asked if she would like to work for the day, cash on the barrel head. He needed fence mending and bean rows weeded. He also had a ditch that lost water in a bend where the soil crumbled. Nayeli listened to each task, then sketched with a stick in the bare dirt. She drew a narrow channel that split the bend and met it again lower down. She drew small stones packed tight and willow stakes to hold the soil where it turned. Ethan crouched beside her sketch, surprised. He had tried a straight shore of boards and it never held. He had not thought of giving the water a gentler path. They set to work. Nayeli moved as if she knew the shape of each task before it began. She checked the fence wire and found the weak post by pressing with her shoulder until the wood told the truth. She set stones without hurry and tied willow with a firm hand that did not break the twigs. When she weeded the beans, she did not rip the roots. She pinched the weeds at the line where stem met soil. The field took a breath as if it was glad to be seen. At midday, they ate under the cottonwood. The tree gave a round shade that felt like a small room in the open air. Ethan poured water from a jug and split a cornbread cake he had saved from breakfast. He noticed the way Nayeli looked at the field when she was quiet. It was not the hungry look of a person who wished to take. It was the working look of a person who wished to make something stand. He asked how long she had been on the road. She said long enough to see too many doors close. She did not speak bitterly. She told him about the names of plants her mother taught her, and how you could read soil by color and smell. She told him that a ditch must be treated like a living thing. It needs a curve to breathe, a shoulder to lean on, and a place to rest after a hard run. In the afternoon, Ethan said they needed a few small parts from Caban, a hinge, 2 strap bolts, and a sack of seed. He asked if she would ride into town with him. She said yes without fear, though he saw her read his face to make sure he had no hidden plan. On the wagon road, the sage brushed the wheels and the air smelled clean. In town, they tied the wagon near the general store. The storekeeper glanced at them and then looked back at his ledger. A few men at the porch paused their talk. Ethan felt their eyes and kept his voice even as he asked for the hinge and bolts. Nayeli stood beside him, quiet, hands folded. When they left, the sheriff, a steady man with kind, watchful eyes, met them at the corner. He said hello to Ethan and then to Nayeli. He told them the law would keep the peace for anyone who kept it. He spoke this like a promise and like a reminder to anyone listening. They loaded the wagon and were almost ready to go when Cole Avery, a foreman from a larger spread, came down the boardwalk. He wore a fine hat and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He said he had work for any person who owed a bit for crossing land near his north fence. He did not say the word debt, but Ethan heard it anyway. Nayeli lifted her chin and thanked him, but said no. She said she had clear work already and had crossed no fence without care or permission. Cole's smile got thinner. Ethan stepped halfway between them and looked Cole in the eyes without raising his voice. The sheriff, who had not gone far, walked back and asked if all was well. Cole tipped his hat in a quick, sharp motion and told a joke about a sensitive day. Then he left. The sheriff watched him go and then looked back at Ethan and Nayeli. "You two take your time," he said. "No rush getting out of town." His tone said he would be near if needed. Ethan nodded his thanks. On the ride home, the sky swelled with dark clouds. By the time they reached the farm, the wind had come up and the wind pushed the first heavy drops across the yard before Ethan could get the wagon under the shed. He and Nayeli moved fast without speaking much. They covered the seed sacks with a tarp. They pulled the mare into the barn. Then the rain came in a long gray sheet, hard enough to hide the hills. The new ditch bend began to crumble at the edge. Ethan felt his chest tighten. If the bend failed, water would tear a new path and steal soil he could not afford to lose. Nayeli ran to the willow pile and grabbed the twigs she had saved. She did not fight the water. She moved with it, reading each swirl as if it spoke a word. She set stones in the outside curve, hand over hand, and pushed willow stakes down with the heel of her palm. Ethan joined her and held the stakes while she tied them. Rain soaked his shirt and ran into his boots. He did not care. He watched the water soften, slow, and glide through the bend like a horse that had found a gentle pace. The ditch held. The beans lifted their leaves as if to drink the air. By dark, the storm had passed. The frogs sang again. Ethan shook the rain off his hat and looked at the work they had done together. He felt the tired that comes with a clean day, not the tired of losing. They ate hot stew and shared the last of the cornbread. The quiet between them was not empty. It was full of small thanks from both sides. The next morning, the field smelled rich and alive. The ditch hummed like a soft song. Ethan saw the beans stand straighter than he had seen them in weeks. He felt hope like a warm light behind his ribs. He turned to Nayeli, ready to speak, but she was already waiting with a calm face. She told him she was grateful for safe sleep and honest work. She told him she wanted to live by choice and with respect, not by chance or fear. Then she spoke with steady eyes and a voice that did not shake. "Please choose me as your wife," she said. "I will share the work and the food. I will keep the herbs and the numbers. I will stand with you. I ask for a home where my name is spoken with care." Ethan did not answer at once. He looked at the ditch, at the fence line, at the cottonwood that had watched over them the day before. He thought of promises that were kept too fast and then broke when the wind rose. He did not want to protect her only because the town could be unkind. He wanted something clear and good that would stand in the open light. "I need one day," he said. "I will use it well. I will answer with care." Nayeli nodded. "One day is wise," she said. "I will keep working." They moved through the day side by side. They set a windbreak along the west edge with posts and brush. They planted fast beans in the space between rows to catch any lost time. In the evening, Nayeli taught Ethan how to braid a longer strand from thin willow. He showed her how to mark the ledger so that both could see the pattern of money coming in and going out. As the sun went down, they sat under the cottonwood without words for a time. Then they said goodnight and slept. Ethan woke before dawn. He walked the fence line and then climbed the hill behind the house where his brother had once taken him to watch the sunrise. He stood there and thought about the word belonging. He thought about the way Nayeli worked, how she saved the mare, how she bent the ditch without pride, how she stood her ground in town without anger. He thought about his own silence and the long years where he chose to live in a small circle to avoid more loss. He realized that choosing a larger circle was not weakness, It was a promise to live. He knew then that any answer must be mutual. Not help, but union. Not rescue, but partnership. When he walked back to the yard, he saw dust on the road. Cole Avery rode up with 2 hands beside him. They had the flat faces of men who planned to push their way through. Ethan felt his jaw set. He called for Nayeli not as a warning, but so she could stand where she chose. She came out and stood by the porch steps, straight-backed and calm. Cole tipped his hat and smiled in that thin way again. He said he had come to collect a favor for the land she had crossed. He said a person without ties could work off such favors on a crew. He did not say where the crew worked or what the pay was. He did not have to. The shape of his plan sat in the spaces between his words. Nayeli stepped forward before Ethan could speak. She stated her full name in a clear voice. She said she was free and had chosen honest work on Ethan's farm. She said she would stay or go by her own choice alone. She asked Cole to leave the land in peace. Cole's smile dropped. He told her she did not have standing to speak that way. Ethan stepped beside her, shoulder to shoulder. He told Cole that this was his land and that Nayeli spoke with his respect and hers. He said there would be no more talk of favors. He kept his tone calm. He did not raise his hands. He simply stood and said the words that were needed. A rider appeared down the lane. It was the sheriff. A neighbor had seen dust and guessed trouble and had sent his son to fetch him. The sheriff dismounted without hurry. He greeted everyone by name, including Nayeli. He asked if peace held. Ethan said yes, and he repeated that Cole and his men were leaving. The sheriff looked at the ditch, the fence line, the neat rows, the calm yard. He chewed the inside of his cheek, then told Cole and his hands that they were not needed here today or any day unless invited. He reminded them that the law kept free people free. He did not make a speech. He watched until they turned their horses and rode away. When they were gone, the sheriff tipped his hat and said he would be by in town later if papers were needed. He left them to their day. Nayeli stood very still for a long breath, then looked at Ethan. He could see that she was steady, but he also saw the strain that had brushed her face. He knew his answer needed to be more than safety. It needed to be a shared path. That evening, Ethan carved a simple ring from a small fall of peach wood. He sanded it smooth with care. He did not sleep much. At dawn, he met Nayeli by the cottonwood where they had eaten after the storm. The light was soft and the air smelled like wet earth. He told her what he had learned on the hill. He told her he wanted to marry her if she wanted the same life, not a title for shelter. He held out the wooden ring, rough and honest like the field. I choose you, he said, but I will not speak for you. Choose me or do not. We will go on with respect either way. Nayeli smiled with her eyes as well as her mouth. She took the ring in her hand and slipped it on her own finger first. She held it there and then offered her hand to him so he could place it again. She spoke in simple words that matched his. I choose you, she said. I will share the years as we shared the rain. They agreed on a small wedding under the cottonwood. The sheriff came to witness. The storekeeper's wife, who had a gentle heart no matter how she tried to hide it, brought a ribbon for Nayeli's hair. A neighbor couple stood with them. There were no grand clothes. Ethan wore his best shirt. Nayeli wore her plain dress washed and mended with a small braid coiled like a crown. They spoke their vows in clear sentences. They promised to share work and food, to listen, to teach, to name each other with care. When they were done, the sheriff wrote the record and shook their hands with a smile that reached his eyes. Life after that did not turn magical. It turned real in a new way. They rose early and planned the day together. Nayeli kept her pouch of seeds and planted a thin row of flowers along the fence. Ethan kept his ledger and wrote each cost and sale, now with her neat numbers beside his. At the table, they used both languages, trading words like gifts. Nayeli taught simple songs that kept time for chopping and grinding. Ethan taught a boy from the widow's house how to set a stake true. The boy went home and told his mother about the ditch trick, and the mother told the storekeeper's wife, and slowly the town began to shift its tone. People started to greet Nayeli by name. A few asked her to look at a sick hen or a weak calf. She helped when she could and always asked fair pay or fair trade, no more and no less.